Governor Healey, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you both.
Yeah, thank you very, very much for coming in, Governor Healey. So we were talking right before you got here about the possibility of ICE coming here to Massachusetts or to Boston, and what we can do. And we talked to the mayor of Providence yesterday about these ICE-free zones. I don't know if he can pull it off, but what can we do to protect people here if we see here what we've seen in Minnesota?
Well, I certainly hope a big surge doesn't come. And, you know, I think that people across this country have been horrified by the tactics of ICE agents. And, you know, my call continues to be on Donald Trump to bring all these ICE agents back from these cities, fix this agency, which is clearly broken. But look, in the meantime, what I'd say to folks is do what you're doing now. I mean, for the better part of a year, people have been working really hard. Our offices worked hard supporting immigrant organizations who are providing wage replacement, who are providing food, who are providing care to families who've been affected by ICE's actions. So continue to be involved that way. We've organized a lot of legal services efforts over the last year out of my office, which the legislature has funded in part to provide legal services attorneys to people who have been detained and have gone to fight for their release. And so, you know, that work continues. But I'll tell you what I've done in Massachusetts. You know, based on what we've seen over the last several months, drop in school enrollment in Massachusetts, people not showing up for doctor's appointments, afraid to go to church even and worship, and courthouses. I mean, the fact that criminal cases are being dismissed right now because people are fearful to go to court either as a victim or as a witness because they're fearful of an ICE presence there. And so taking into account all these things, I issued an executive order yesterday and also filed legislation. My executive order says that ICE is to be kept out of our schools, our hospitals, our courthouses, and our places of worship. We want people to be able to go to these places and feel safe. The second thing it does is basically codify what has been our practice all year, which is to say no state resources to be used for staging. For example, you can't use a parking lot at a DOT facility, for example, if you're ICE, to stage operations. So we want to be clear about that. Also, no, ICE cannot be in non-public places in state buildings. And, you know, we just have to be clear about all these things. The other thing is I said, you know, no governor can send their National Guard into Massachusetts over my objection. That hasn't happened yet, but we wanted to be out ahead on that. So the other thing I'd say is this: continue to call on and demand action from Congress. I don't, you know, to be clear, swapping out a Greg Bavino or a Kristi Noem, neither of whom ever deserve to be in these positions. They really, I think, bring great indignity to the work of public servants and the work of the agencies they're purportedly heading, right? But that's not going to fix it, okay? And this is Donald Trump. He needs to fix this now. And if he doesn't, Congress needs to act and step in and take this back.
You know, Governor Walz out in Minnesota advised his citizens to, if ICE were to come and do something, to be out there with their cameras to document what they were doing. Would you advise citizens of Massachusetts
People are already
to do the
doing
same
that.
thing?
People are already exercising what is a First Amendment protected privilege. And, you know, that's part of what's so wrong here. I mean, you've got ICE that, let's just look at the past year. It not only is ICE, you know, responsible for 2 recent killings, they've also been detaining children. 3,800 children across this country are being held in ICE detention facilities. They've picked up U.S. citizens. They've gone after and picked up people just based on their skin color. You know, they've ripped. I mean, the visual images we've seen of them, you know, tearing moms and dads away from their kids. I mean, this is heartbreaking stuff. And so, you know, we need to continue to fight back on these abuses. And to the recording issue, you know, I was horrified this morning when I learned that a journalist had been arrested for exercising a First Amendment protection. I mean, I wish that Pam Bondi would focus on investigating the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy instead of investigating, arresting a journalist. I mean, once again, this is an administration that knows no bounds. They throw out the First Amendment. They threw out the Fourth Amendment. You saw that memo released recently by a whistleblower, apparently, that said that ICE was going to be able to just go into people's houses without a warrant, which completely throws out the system that we've had in place for 250 years here, something that was born out of case law in Massachusetts. And interestingly, last week we saw, right, both the head of the FBI and Donald Trump throw out the Second Amendment. So, you know, this, I think, whole situation is so sad. It is so heartbreaking. I'm proud of the people and inspired by the people of Minnesota and elsewhere who have come out in solidarity to say this is just not right. The people up in Portland, you know, who've done the same thing, and certainly anyone has a right to record with their cell phone the actions of ICE, and to the extent there have been violations of federal and state law, those people should be held accountable. ICE agents should be held accountable. And you know, I've always said people shouldn't be interfering with the work of ICE, but you know, in terms of recording the activities of ICE, it's outrageous. It's really, really outrageous. And look, you guys know this. I come to this as an attorney general, as a prosecutor, and as somebody who actually worked with federal agencies, ICE, CBP, HSI, FBI, over my career to investigate and prosecute serious crimes and individuals and to put people away. That is not what this is about, which is why I said yesterday, I cannot call ICE a law enforcement agency. They are not acting in any way that comports with standard law enforcement practice. And that's why it's got to stop. That's why people are saying enough is enough. And we've got to do all we can right now. There's so much fear and anxiety out there across this country, across our state. And we've got to find ways to give support to people who, as I say, are afraid to send their kids to school, afraid to go to church, are not going to doctor's appointments or seeking medical assistance when they actually need it. This is just not making us safer.
Two quick related things, then we'll get to your calls and texts at 877-301-8970. We have talked about with your successor as Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, a lot about exactly what you're talking about. And by the way, we got in this morning, ton of texts and emails complimenting you for what you proposed yesterday, either by executive order or legislation. But when we've talked to the Attorney General, she's been very candid about at least her belief that there's very little that a state can actually do. And do you not have worries that, I know how well-intended everything you proposed yesterday is, that a huge percentage of what you're proposing wouldn't stand legal muster if challenged?
Well, you know, I'll say this. I agree with the Attorney General that immigration is a field that the Supreme Court has said is really dominated and led by the feds. And so, you know, the states don't have as much at their disposal to do. What I did yesterday, though, I feel is within my jurisdiction. I hope it's not challenged, okay? And we'll fight it if it is. But I hope that, you know, given everything that's gone on and how this has devolved and how harmful it has been to communities and to neighborhoods and to cities and states across this country, that they not go there, right? They just stop. And by the way, if they wanted to act like normal law enforcement, there are ways they can right now go and get warrants to actually go after the so-called worst of the worst, okay? There's a mechanism to do that. They're not choosing to do that. So, you know, we'll see what happens by way of challenges, but, you know, my interest right now is being out there and being clear. This is what I want to see happen, and I take these actions in good faith. I believe that they are the lawful actions, and also my responsibility as governor, Jim. I got to protect the people of my state. And I'm sorry, it's a sad, sad commentary that in this day and age, this is where we are in the United States of America, that you have a federal government actively terrorizing neighborhoods, assaulting cities and states, putting people in harm's way, by the way, putting local law enforcement in harm's way, creating chaos, and perpetrating lasting trauma and harm. It's something that was instigated and perpetuated by this administration. And they come up with these phony, fabricated justifications for going into places, okay? When there are actual, if you were serious, there are actual ways to deal with that. That's not what this is about. And I think it's important that people continue to speak up for, basic American freedoms and protections. I think that's having an effect. And you know what scares me? Imagine all the things that are not being recorded on cell phone that are being done by this administration. That's something that people really got to be concerned about. This was all recorded on a cell phone. Imagine all the things that are happening in the federal government. And this has been an administration about retaliation and retribution and intimidation and attempts to silence. You've seen it against media conglomerates, against universities, against corporations. Imagine what is going on. The other thing is this, and this was incredibly concerning to me. In the immediate aftermath of both Alex Pretty's killing and Renee Good's killing, the federal government came in and basically took away the evidence, kicked local and state law enforcement out, and there's been no investigation. And also, with that, they're lying. Lie after lie after lie coming out of the mouths of everybody we've heard from in the federal government. That's a really scary place to be for this country when our own government isn't telling us the truth and is actively engaged in lies and fabrications. That's a place, Jim, that I haven't been in my lifetime. We haven't seen this before, and that is really, really something that, in my view, all Americans, this isn't about a party, all Americans should be concerned about and should be demanding more from their government.
Very quickly, before we get to the calls, a related question. 2 days ago, Congresswoman Presley was on with us and said that ICE should be abolished because it's so tainted, so scandalized, so cruel, and replaced by something new from the ground up. Do you share that perspective?
Customs and Border Patrol and ICE have had an important mission. Okay, the mission was to deal with border security and who is coming into our country. And, I support what was the mission of CBP and ICE. What I don't support is what ICE is right now in its current iteration. It is not fulfilling the mission it was set to fulfill.
So reform or abolish it?
I don't know what, abolish it, I don't know.
And replace it with another agency that does the appropriate things that you're describing.
What needs to happen is that ICE needs to be pulled back right now and needs to be fixed and needs to be, call it reform, call it whatever. I mean, the thing is broken. It is not working. It is not functioning. And it is not, and how about this? They're going to send ICE to the Olympics. And what sickens me is, I know the funding that our law enforcement, state and local, need out there nationally. We're trying to feed kids, right? We're trying to provide health care, which are taken away from people. And yet they have found a way to grow this ICE budget just by this really, I think, appalling amount. If you add up all the funding for state and local law enforcement across the country, it is less than the funding for ICE right now. So this is an agency that is broken and that needs to be reformed and fixed and completely overhauled.
We're talking to the governor of the Commonwealth. She's now yours.
Stan on the road. Thank you for calling. You're on with the governor.
Hi, Stan.
Hey, hi. You just let me get you off speaker. Yeah, Governor, and thanks for taking my call. Good friend of the governor's, going back to when she was Deputy Attorney General. And I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the initiatives that she's fostering in terms of ICE. For people who are still on the sidelines, I'm hoping that they get up and do something. I'm a regular at the ICE detention facility in Burlington. We've got another big demonstration on the 28th. And what I would hope we could do, and I was talking with our district attorney, is we need to make it clear that state laws against kidnapping and murder are going to be enforced. And that's the one other additional thing. But thank you so much, Governor, for all you're doing.
Stan, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
To the caller's point, I was really, in addition to having a representative from the Archdiocese of Boston stand alongside me yesterday, And I don't know if you've seen the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops post, but it's pretty remarkable, and I give great gratitude to both Bishop Henning and Cardinal O'Malley, our own, who were featured in that. In addition to having the bishop with me, I had 4 district attorneys alongside me yesterday, okay, who know a little something about law enforcement and public safety and the ways that things should be done and are not being done right now by ICE and the federal government.
Stan, thank you for the call. 877-301-8970 is our number.
You know, several people are also asking, having seen people get shoved to the ground who are videotaping out in Minnesota, if Boston or state police could intervene in some of these situations to protect people. That it looks like assault and battery to me, but to protect people that are, if they are on the scene, is that possible?
Well, look, I think state and local law enforcement are out there every day protecting and serving the public. And, you know, this is what I mean. Take a look at the situation in Minneapolis. You have 6,000 ICE agents in an area with a total police population of 600 between the Twin Cities. So they're outnumbered 5 to 1. And, you know, when there are calls to go out, understand that these same 600 individuals still are there having to deal with the calls for a domestic violence incident or an armed robbery or respond to a car crash, right? And so what the Trump administration is doing by creating all of this chaos in some instances and then, you know, just outright harm in communities, it's a huge burden on local law enforcement. It's just not right. And, you know, it puts them in a terrible position. And so, you know, I know and I'm confident in our local and state law enforcement, who, by the way, are trained. In contrast to the ICE agents, they go through incredible training, 22 weeks at police academies in Massachusetts. And they, you know, they just act in a totally different way. But, you know, what needs to happen is ICE needs to stop acting the way it's acting, okay? That's what needs to happen now. It cannot continue. Not another day should go by. Not another hour should go by where this ICE activity continues. And, you know, while they have a role and a purpose in securing the border and, you know, going after people who are here unlawfully, who, in my view, you go after the people who have committed crimes. What you need to do is fix our broken immigration system and create a pathway for people who are here lawfully and working and raising families and paying taxes. I mean, you know the stories. People have been taken off the streets who have lived and worked here peaceably for 10, 20 years. It's heartbreaking. That's what needs to happen. That's where the pressure should be. That's where the focus should be. And again, talk to the president, but talk to those Republicans in Congress, because there are Republicans in Congress, and it won't take many of them, who can stop this now.
Let's go to Jennifer in Hingham. Hi, Jennifer.
Thank you,
welcome.
Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for taking my phone call.
Sure.
I'm a member of the faculty at Bunker Hill Community College. I'm calling regarding her latest budget request from the GIC.
You don't have to refer to her as her, by the way. You're speaking to her directly, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Governor Healey. So for the GIC, you have requested a $100 million cut to their budget for the upcoming year. I looked at the documents that are online. This is going to come out of my paycheck directly from either with increased premiums and increased co-pays, lack of services, or decreased services. This is adding insult to the injury that the community college employees are already paid 40% less than our compatriots in other comparable states, i.e. New York and California. How can you justify this, particularly after committing $100 million to replace subsidies that private sector employees lost from Trump?
Okay, let's have it. By the way, we're getting a lot of calls on this topic. Jennifer, thanks. Let's hear from the governor.
So it sounds like Jennifer's a state employee, works at Bunker Hill Community College. We love our community colleges. I'm proud that as governor, I made community college free in Massachusetts, and we've seen double-digit increases in enrollment. My budget also funded a program where high school students can both be in high school and attend community college at the same time and build credits towards an associate's degree. So I want you to know that I am a big proponent of and believer in community colleges and certainly support our educators. You know, Jennifer raises what I think is, one of the top 3 issues for people right now, healthcare costs. And here's what happened, folks. Donald Trump and Congress took $1 trillion out of healthcare this summer. That has an effect on state budgets. So as I prepared this year's state budget, I had to think about what we could do. And, we had to make some hard decisions. We decided a few weeks ago, you may remember when ACA subsidies were going away, we stepped forward as a state and said, we're going to cover that out of a trust fund because it was important to me that people who were receiving coverage not lose that insurance. And there were 270,000 people receiving that coverage who were going to see premiums they could never afford and coverage go away. And I just thought, God, you're in the middle of cancer treatments or anything else. Like, how cruel is that? So I'm proud that we were able to provide that money and cover those people. In terms of the budget for next year, we had to take a look at things. And I thought, most important when it comes to healthcare funding and health and human services funding is that we take care of the most vulnerable among us. We've got seniors, kids, people with disabilities. There's a lot of need out there. And so, I'll tell you how I approached the budget too, by the way. I said the first thing, team, we need to do is maximize every taxpayer dollar. We need to bring the most efficiency to the programs that we can bring. And we need to look out for the most vulnerable, okay? In a time and in a year we've seen SNAP benefits cut and home and heating assistance taken away and veteran services cut and these devastating health care cuts, we need to make sure that we're prioritizing. I've tried to find other ways to help people, like the caller and others this past year. I'm the first governor to cap copays and deductibles. 2 weeks ago, I announced that we were getting rid of prior authorizations for a whole host of treatments and medications. I'm looking every day to find ways to deal with this. We're going to continue to work on this, but it's why we need to have a change in Washington because the states can't bear this financial burden alone. And when you take $1 trillion out of health care and other cuts that you've made, know that this year our budget, we were facing, because of those cuts, a $3.7 billion loss to our budget just based on federal defunding alone. So, that's what we're trying to work with and work through. And we're just going to continue to, stay on this and hope that midterms bring something different in terms of funding.
Very quick follow-up to that. You mentioned the appropriation, the amount of money the state's doing.
The other thing, let me say this, because
Sure.
this is important. What the caller's expressing about premiums, I know that. I hear that every day. I see that every day from people. I hear it from people. I hear it from employers. And if you can't pay your premium, you're not gonna keep the care up. And by the way, not keeping the care up doesn't mean you're not going to get sick. You're still going to get sick. And you're probably going to go to an emergency room or hospital, and then everybody pays, right, for that care. The system of healthcare is broken in America, and it's not working for people in Massachusetts. And so I announced also that I put together a healthcare affordability working group, bringing together providers, insurers, and employers to figure out what are the things we can do right now that are new and different to at least fix it here in Massachusetts or try to make it better. That group is active. They're meeting, they're engaged, and their mission is to get back to me as quickly as possible with ideas along the way because people cannot afford it. Healthcare is not sustainable. It is broken in this country. At Massachusetts, we led so much when it comes to healthcare. We have the best healthcare in the world. We should be working every day to fix this and come up with a different way.
Quickly, what percentage of the dollar loss in federal subsidies for those on the Affordable Care Act that you mentioned a minute ago is the state covering? Are we covering 100% of the loss or a share? What share are we covering? Do you understand the question? Or
Not really, but we're picking up, let me answer it this way. We're making sure that whatever was lost in subsidy is made up for it so that people are able to keep their
Fair
coverage.
enough. Here's another affordability question.
It broke my heart. I mean, imagine, and people were, 270,000 people, 270,000 households who were going to lose coverage if we hadn't acted. Hopefully we won't see another shutdown. But my hope is, they can figure out a way through to restoring these credits, which, by the way, they're affecting people in Massachusetts. They're affecting people all over the country in terrible, terrible ways. And at least we're a state that's come forward and said, we're going to find a way to provide people coverage.
So there's an affordability question before we take a break. What are you doing, anonymous texter, what are you doing about Eversource? They're robbing us, utility. Obviously, we're frozen at 60 degrees and can't afford to put the thermostat higher. What are you doing?
So, with my budget and at my State of the State last week, you heard me talk a lot about affordability. Not a new word to me. I've probably been working on this since my time as Attorney General. Affordability is really focused on 3 areas: lowering housing costs by building more housing more quickly, lowering energy costs, and lowering healthcare costs. When it comes to energy, here's what we're doing. In the immediate, I've got the utilities and worked with them. There's a 25% discount on your electric bills for February and March, which are the most expensive months, and a 10% discount on gas. We're also working to bring in more supply. We've got hydro coming down from Quebec now. That's really important. We have wind, which is almost done, Vineyard Wind Project. We have 1 turbine left to install. And I've importantly filed legislation that we really need to get passed that will help us bring down costs immediately, take charges off of your bills immediately, and bring in more energy supply to the region, which with more supply will see costs go down. So, that's what I'm doing right now. It's a major problem across the country. It's a major problem in the Northeast. But that's what we're working on.
One thing I don't understand, though, if I may, when you talk about this 25% and 10% cut in February and March, it's essentially a loan to people, meaning they're going to have to pay most of that
Some
back
of it.
later on. What I don't understand, and beyond the fact they have to, and I understand this is the toughest time of year, so
It's not just a loan. Oh, well, you can finish your
the
question.
second thing is I also read the one utility that is not requiring the payback in later months is a small operation called Liberty Gas. Why are they able to essentially forgive these exorbitant bills, and other companies are just willing to postpone the exorbitant bills?
Okay, so let me just clarify. What we did is there are about 5 utilities operating in the state. Some are bigger, some are smaller. So for your electric bills, it's a 25% discount that you're going to get for February and March. 10% of that is just going to be, we're giving you back that money. Okay, you're not going to pay it later. That's out of a trust fund, and that's real money that's going back in your pocket. That's a 10% reduction. The remaining 15% for that and the 10% for gas, you're not going to have to pay. You'll have to pay it later on, but it'll be during a time when energy prices are lower, okay? Because again, February and March, most expensive, so it's going to save money. The other day, the utilities said that they wanted to tack on interest to that. I immediately said no, told the utilities no, and they've agreed, so there's no interest on that. Liberty wasn't going to charge interest in the first instance because they actually had an excess amount they had already taken in from ratepayers on their bills, so they actually didn't need to charge more in terms of interest. But the good news is there's no interest being charged to anyone, and people are getting a discount, and we're working every single day on this issue. I bumped into a woman the other night out at something, and she talked to me about her $800 gas bill, and it just went through the roof in no time. And I hear story after story. I talked to my team. My team immediately got on the phone to the utility. The utility went out. They did find inefficiencies there, and the landlord's got to do some work to address some of the problems with the system there. But what we also learned is that this woman was eligible for discount programs through the utility. So I also say to the public, talk to your utility. She was able to get an immediate 25% discount, okay, on her utility bill. She didn't realize that. There are a lot of people who may be eligible for these programs through their utility. So before you write that check, call your utility and see if you're somebody who qualifies for a discount program.
Brian and Hudson, you are on with the governor. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Brian.
Thank you, Governor and BPR, for this opportunity.
Sure.
Hi,
Governor
Brian.
Healey, I support and appreciate your efforts to minimize the impact of Donald Trump on our Commonwealth. I am calling because of the shameful fact that the death of Enrique Delgado-Garcia while in training for Massachusetts State Police on September 13th, 2024, is still not explained. Any reference to investigations or special prosecutors have long lost their potency. The time for an explanation and final settlement is now.
Brian, thank you.
Yeah,
Governor.
Brian, look, I couldn't agree with you more. I met with his family a long time ago on this, and I was really pleased to see, though you don't want me to refer to them, the independent investigations. I can't do more than advocate for what I've advocated for, which is getting the results as quickly as possible. So I don't know the status of that. You have to talk to the independent investigator, but boy, I sure want to see those results yesterday and as soon as possible. And in the meantime, Brian, the Massachusetts State Police and the Training Academy have made additional reforms to the training program. But I share your desire to see that stuff as quickly as possible. It's just not within my control.
Whose
Brian, thanks.
control is? I believe it is a former prosecutor from Suffolk County that's in charge of this investigation.
Yep.
So who's his boss?
Appointed by the Attorney General.
Okay. So he's okay. Thank you.
877, Brian, thanks for your call. 877-301-8870. Governor Healey, every month we have the Attorney General here. Almost every month we have the auditor here. What we discuss every time they're both here, you know where we're going here. What we discuss every month is the fact that a ballot question was passed about 14 months ago by 71 or 72%, saying the legislature should be audited. That's the law of the Commonwealth now. As you know, the audience I'm sure knows, is a standoff between the Attorney General who tells us she's not getting the answers she needs from the auditor. The auditor says that's not true. She's given her everything she needs. We've offered them time for both to come on the show to talk it out here. The Attorney General has said she would prefer not to. Former Judge Nancy Gertner has now offered to serve as a mediator. We haven't heard back from the Attorney General. Why aren't you trying to use the bully pulpit here to pull both sides in so the overwhelming will of the public? And you told us you voted for this thing, as did the Attorney General.
Yeah,
Why aren't you using your power to force this to a head so that the people get what they voted for?
Because it's in court right now.
You got to move. You got to move.
Because
It's not in court because the Attorney General won't represent, says she won't represent the auditor until she finds out what the answers to her questions.
she's entitled to that. I mean, this is the problem. It's a constitutional question. The Attorney General is just doing her job, and it needs to be sorted out in the court. I stand by my support for the ballot question, and we in the meantime, it's just got to go through the court process. It's a constitutional issue.
But again, there is no court process, and with all due respect, the Attorney General has told us she acknowledges that there are some things that the auditor can audit that are perfectly constitutionally permissible, some that are not. But getting to that point is where the problem lies. And I guess what I'm saying is, don't you think, considering you're the most powerful official in the state, bringing them together, because there is no litigation at the moment, to try to reach common ground is in the interest of the public?
I support the public's vote. I voted with the majority of the public, but no, that's something that has got to go to the court. So I'm not, it's not my charge. There's nothing I can do there. Okay. If the AG is asking questions, then I hope the auditor would provide answers to those questions and allow this process to go forward so it can get sorted out.
Well, she says she has. It's
a constitutional question.
Bob and Redding, you're next with the governor. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Jim, Marjorie, Governor Healey. This is truly an honor to speak to you. I'm going to switch the subject to three things: pets, affordability, and employee ownership. And I'll bring all these together.
Quickly.
And Governor, I hope I make you proud. My wife and I own a veterinary hospital. We take care of dogs and cats. So when I say we own, that means we're independent.
You can say the
Only
name if you want,
20%.
Bob. It's perfectly fine if you choose.
We'll all run down with the dogs this
Go ahead.
afternoon.
I'm not an advertiser.
That's
but
fine.
I will. We're called Best Pets Veterinary Hospital in Tewksbury. Thank
Sure.
you for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
So we love being independent. We're proud to be an independent business. In our industry, private equity has come in. They've bought up about 80% of the practices in Massachusetts. By the way, Massachusetts is the highest state in the union as far as dog and cat ownership per human. Pretty amazing
Wow.
stuff. We love
Really?
dogs and cats.
I didn't know that.
Yep, it's true.
I'll add that
Yep,
to my
so
list of firsts.
Come on in if you own a dog or a cat.
So what's our
We'd be-
question here, Bob?
Here's the question. We're in our 60s.
He wants to know how to
And something
protect
called
himself. Yeah, I get it. Okay, go ahead,
Okay,
Bob.
go ahead then.
No, I want to set up an ESOP, an employee ownership. I want to avoid private equity and turn over our business to employees. And I know, Governor, hooray for you. You set up the Mass Center for Employee Ownership. Is there some way, they're very expensive to set these up? Again, I want to avoid private equity. And I've heard a rumor that the governor of the state may set up a way to make the feasibility study, which is the first step we have to do in setting up an ESOP, make it less expensive.
Can you
Have
res-
heard
can you-
anything
Yeah,
about that?
I think
Let
Bob-
the governor respond, Bob, if you would, please.
Bob, I think, look, I think that's a great idea, and you certainly have my support in exploring that. And look, anything I can do to help our business owners, our small business owners, what Bob and his wife are trying to do is find a way to turn this business over to their employees. And you guys know about these, there are different companies out there that are employee owned. So let me take that back to my economic development team and see if we can offline with you, Bob.
Can we keep him on
more
hold and
about that.
get his contact
Yeah,
info?
keep him on hold. And
Don't go away, Bob.
Bob, thank you, seriously. Thank you for taking care of our pets. They provide, I know as a dog owner, they provide meaningful support and comfort. And, I brag about Massachusetts being first in education and healthcare and innovation and, the best state to have a baby in and live if you're a woman and all sorts of good things. And I'm really proud to be able to add that we are number one when it comes to dog and cat ownership in the country. That's pretty cool.
Did not know
What does
that.
that mean? We own the most?
Yeah, I guess
Ask
so.
Bob. Yeah, I guess so. We also eat the most ice cream in the country. I think we all eat
Did
an
not
average
know-
of 22 pounds
Did not know that.
a year, and which is also provides comfort.
What kind of dog do you have?
A retriever.
Oh.
Those are great dogs.
Yeah.
Do you like the snow?
Loves
the snow.
The snow.
Yeah, it's great to see the dogs that like
Not
the
great
snow.
at shoveling.
Can I ask a quick? Did he say that there's a state ownership? There's a thing you created that would help people take over their businesses and have employee ownership of this thing? Did I get that right, or did I miss the point?
No, he's wanting me to do this study and engage in it.
Oh,
and
I
have
see.
that.
Okay.
And I
Well,
think
it's
I think it's a
happening-
good idea. And we're trying to. I think there is something set up to facilitate that, but I want to dial back with
Yeah,
the
it's
team.
happening to vets
Bob.
and dentists, and it's a real problem. Private equity coming in.
Let's go-
Anyway, we
I'm
have
sorry.
a
Oh,
we have a
sorry.
question here from somebody here at the Boston Public Library. Hannah, who's the questioner?
Or not?
Oh, we're not. We do. Okay.
Hi.
Here she is.
Just say who you are first, if you don't mind, please.
Hi, my name's Laura Layton.
Hi, Laura.
So
Laura.
I own a vegetable farm in Worcester County, and I was really excited to see in your budget that you're almost doubling the HIP budget for this year. However, in my county, the issue is more about access than it is about the actual budget. I attend 4 weekly farmers markets during the season, and at those markets, most of them I'm the only vegetable vendor that accepts SNAP, so those markets essentially don't have access to HIP. So I've talked to pretty much everyone I can think of to talk to about this issue as far as onboarding new vendors to the program, and they basically tell me that I have to wait and see what the budget says, but I'm not sure why it's so cost prohibitive to onboard new vendors when it doesn't seem like you'd have to increase the amount that's available overall to add a new vendor.
I agree
And
with
what's
you.
HIP?
I don't
Yeah, exactly.
I don't understand that in the sense. Did you have to pay a fee to be a HIP vendor?
No, I don't think so. And
Yeah.
I already accept SNAP, so I already
Yeah.
have all of the programming. I've been approved to accept that. We only sell vegetables. And so I haven't been able to get a straight answer
Laura,
as to
what's
why.
a HIP
What's
vendor?
HIP?
So HIP is the Healthy Incentives Program.
okay.
It's it provides
Great.
people who get
We know.
SNAP to have
I
extra
didn't
money.
know the acronym.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Laura, thank you for farming. We love our
Thank
farmers.
you.
In the budget, not only did I increase funding for food pantries, I also increased a tax credit for our farmers who, feed our families. And we saw this year when SNAP was cut, the role of our farmers. So many of our farmers. It was a beautiful thing to see farmers from around the state step forward and feed people. So, I am a big-time supporter of our farmers, Laura. In fact, when I had the chance to name our Agricultural Resources Commissioner, I selected a farmer, Ashley Randall. She's not a vegetable farmer, she's a dairy farmer. But let us get you connected with DAR, because maybe, some of the folks you're talking to who are farmers who want to be part of this program, there's more education that we can give them about, how easy it is to sign up. And, we want to have people taking advantage of HIP. That's why I increased funding for HIP. I don't want to see people in Massachusetts go hungry.
Right.
And that's an important program. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
Stick around with my team, my staff here, and we'll get you connected with Commissioner Randall.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Governor Healey, housing is a huge issue, and we always talk about people are leaving the state because they can't afford the housing. The MBTA Communities Law was supposed to create more than 300,000 new homes. This Globe story points out one of the reasons it's not is because individual towns are doing end runs around the law, and they cite Norwood was supposed to have more than 2,000 new homes. It's actually, they're going to have more like 300. So do we give up on the MBTA community laws or try something different, or what?
Actually, MBTA Communities Law is something that's working now in over 90% of our communities, meaning, this was a law that was passed years ago, signed into law in the prior administration, one I support, and it required communities to get on board and rezone for multifamilies. Today, over 90% of Massachusetts communities have done that. So there are a few that are holding out. As an administration, we continue to work with those holdouts on ways to do this, and we continue to work with all of our communities on how do we bring more housing online more quickly. But it's not just the MBTA Communities Act. The first piece of legislation I filed, the Affordable Homes Act, has done a lot. Now you can build an ADU on your property, the garage or on the back lot, by
Granny
right.
flat, an accessory dwelling
Yeah,
unit.
or your kid can live there, or I've seen multi-generational where the parents move out to the ADU, and the young person comes in and lives in the home and raises a family. People create ADUs so they can generate some rental income. That's one thing. We offered up surplus land that the state has with just abandoned hospitals and courthouses that are not being used, and we're going to turn that into housing. We're converting vacant office space into housing. We've given incentives to developers for housing, and I recently brought the environmental permitting review time for housing developments at the state level. It used to take over a year. We brought it down to 30 days. I am trying to build housing as quickly as possible, in any way possible, around the state. Bringing down housing costs has been my number one priority. I'll say this, in the budget too that I just put forward, I've expanded housing programs. So there's a program right now that helps people with a $25,000 down payment and access to low-cost financing for the purchase of their first home.
Who qualifies for that?
Well, you can go online to look at the range of income, but it's middle-income people. Okay, so
What is middle income
we've
in
expanded
Massachusetts now? I don't even know.
Well, we've expanded eligibility for that program. So we're going to continue to lean into this. When I started as governor, there was a report that came out that said we were short 220,000 homes. We needed to build 220,000 new homes in Massachusetts by 2035. We've already, in just 3 years, got 100,000 homes built, permitted, or under development. We're not there yet, but not only are we going to beat that 2035 estimate, we're going to exceed it, and we're going to exceed it in big-time numbers because housing is so important, and I want people to be able to live here, afford to live here, grow families here, grow businesses here, right? Housing, this is an issue nationwide. You're seeing this is an issue across all the states right now, high cost of housing. But, I think we know what we need to do here in Massachusetts to get it done, and we're going to continue to work on this every single day.
So before you go, we only have a minute left. Marjorie and I are going to see Melania this week in the movie. You want to come with us or no?
This is a hard pass.
Yeah, we're very excited about it ourselves. I'm sorry you can't make it, Governor.
She didn't say she couldn't make it, Marjorie. I just want to be clear.
Yeah,
Governor, it's
okay.
good to see you. Thank you
Yeah,
for your
great
time.
to
We
see
really
you both.
appreciate
Have a
it.
good
Thank you.
weekend, everybody. Thank you for your patience with the storm. Going to try to keep everybody warm this weekend. Check in on elderly neighbors. We're gonna get a real snowstorm coming again on Monday, especially down the Cape, South Shore. Be careful. We'll have people out on the roads doing everything we can to clear things and keep people safe. But just take it easy out there. Take care. Okay? Thank you.